The final section I'll go over here is the admin section. This is where you can manage or modify any of the configurations or organizations that you have on the system. To start, I'll explain that GreenArrow Studio uses a hierarchy system with 3 levels. The System Configuration section gives you control over the things at the highest level. For example, it shows you the version number of the software you're running, your current credit usage, and attributes like the campaign size, any global headers, or if you want to require an unsubscribe link in your emails. I'll cover suppression lists in a few moments, but if you'd like to have spam complaints, bounces, or unsubscribes automatically go to a suppression list, you can configure that here. You can change the amount of data that Studio retains. This is significant because this is the data that Studio uses in its segmentation criteria. So for example, if we have clicks set to 12 months as we do here, if we use the segmentation criteria that says, give me any subscribers that have clicked in the past 6 months, this would still work because we're retaining 12 months of data. If you say, give me any subscribers who have clicked in the past 24 months, then we'll only get the subscribers who have clicked in the past 12 because we've rotated out the data older than 12 months. GreenArrow Studio has the option to watch the disk space to make sure that it doesn't accidentally fill it up. This can happen if GreenArrow Studio is generating more emails than what can get out of the system. So the fastest and easiest way to prevent the disk from filling up is to either slow down or entirely stop generating new messages. You can set the thresholds where the throttling will begin, and you can set the notification so that GreenArrow will send out an email when this kicks in. You can check the current free space and whether or not the throttling is engaged. And you can toggle on and off the inbox and SMTP delivery statistics. If you'd like any headers or footers, either HTML and text, added to every email system-wide, you can add those here. And you can change the preview defaults that will get used when you send a campaign preview. The next level down are organizations. Each organization is a complete separate entity on its own. Anything that happens in one organization will be invisible to any of the other organizations. So for example, a mailing list in this ABC Widgets organization will have no relationship to the mailing list in example customer organization. Likewise, any of the users that are assigned to one organization will only ever be able to log into their own organization. This tool is primarily for email service providers or businesses that have different customers or departments that need to function completely separately from each other. When you create a new organization, you'll be able to assign a number of attributes to it. You can choose the anniversary day. So for example, if you're an email service provider, this is the day when any of the email quotas will reset. So for example, today is the 25th of the month. If I have a sending quota of 1 million emails per month, then on the 25th of every month, that quota will reset back to 0. Each organization can have its own time zone, and all of the campaigns and stats will be relative to that time zone. You have the option to suspend an organization. So for example, if you're an email service provider and that organization hasn't paid a bill, or maybe it's being suspended for abuse, you can set this to no. None of the users will be able to log in to access the system, but things like clicks and opens and spam complaints and unsubscribes will all still function. That way, any of the recipients won't be impacted by the account owner's issues. You can set HTML and text headers and footers. Here's where you can add the monthly quota. You can either let them send as much mail as they want. You can set a quota that they can see, but that's not enforced. You can set a limit that is enforced, so they won't be able to send more than the limit, but that they won't be able to see. Or you can give them a visible limit that will be enforced. So let's say they subscribe for 1,000,000 emails a month, and you'll let them go over by 10%. When they hit 1,000,000 emails this month, they'll see that they've hit that limit, but Studio will let them send an extra 10% until it completely stops their sending. Once you've gone in and changed the quota, or once the monthly anniversary date has passed, they'll be able to resume sending. You can optionally let the organization's users know when they've reached that limit. You can add custom X headers, and you can set permissions for this organization. For any of these attributes, you can let them select any that are available on the system. You can give them a few options to choose from, or you can just set the value that you'd like them to use, and they won't even see that it's an option. This allows you to be as permissive or restrictive as you'd like for each of the various permissions. Once we have the organization configured, we'll need to create some users. On the organization level, you have two different types of users that you can create. Each user that you create will need to be assigned a role. You can either set them as the organization admin, which doesn't have any additional options. They're just able to access everything within that organization. Or you can create them as a standard user. This gives you the option to toggle on and off the various permissions for that user. So for example, if you need to have somebody who can only view the statistics, you can uncheck everything else and just let them see the autoresponder and campaign statistics. You'll need to create a password. Also within this organization, you can see the details that have been set, their current sending status and history, the permissions that you've established, any global custom fields. These function just the same as the list-specific custom fields. It just gives you a shortcut for those custom fields that you know that you're going to need on all of the different mailing lists within this organization. And if you'd like to integrate using our API, you can create a unique key for this organization. Now we can see we have the sales department set up with a user and no mailing lists. You can edit that or any of the other organizations here. As a system admin, you may need to sign in to those other accounts. Rather than grabbing the credentials, signing out, and signing back in as another user, we give you the option to sign in as another user right here through this interface. So for example, if we scroll down to that organization that we just created, you can see here's that user. We can sign in as that user, and now we can navigate Studio within their organization as that user. You'll see in this organization we don't have any mailing lists. If we look at the admin section, you see there are many fewer options. And if we're ready to go back to our system administrator account, we can click back here and it'll take us right back into the page to sign in as another user. Back on the mailing list page, we talked a little bit about seed lists. This is where you can create a new seed list or edit an existing seed list. You simply add a name and paste in the list of addresses you'd like to add to that seed list. Here's where we manage any suppression lists we'd like to use. You can see we already have a few created here. When you create a new suppression list, you'll need to give it a name. You'll need to choose whether or not it's going to be a global suppression list or just an organization suppression list. A global suppression list will impact all lists in all organizations across the entire system. If it's not a global suppression list, you'll need to choose whether it applies to all mailing lists within this organization or to just a specific mailing list within this organization. You can import or add a suppression list. This accepts one email address per line, or if you have an MD5 sum list of addresses, you can import that as well. Again, one MD5 per line. If you're not sure if an email address is on the suppression list, you can type it in here and see the result. We can see that this address is not on the suppression list. And now you can see it is present on this suppression list. And finally, this is where we configure any special sending rules on the system. As I mentioned on the mailing list, this is an advanced feature that allows you to execute a PHP or Perl script for every recipient on a mailing list. Again, this is outside of the scope of this webinar, but if you'd like more information, you can contact support or take a look at our documentation for more information.